I'll just, instead of putting nothing on, I'll ad lib some quality stuff. I'll watch for it to start on the Facebooks. There we go. There it is. Let me like and share that over to my feed. There we go. And we'll share it over to, let's see. Let's share it to the Broadcasting Club first. Hey, everybody, watching TWiRT as we come on the air. We're making some preps to be on with you. We have a really interesting show that's going to be full of fantastic technical information and commentary from Dave Anderson. But Dave's running a couple minutes late.
And I'm here, Kirk.
Oh, you are? Awesome.
Yeah. Just got in the door, so
okay.
This is about the fastest I could get here.
Take your time for a minute or two. And if you need a moment, that's fine. I'm sharing the show out to its usual venues. Oh yes, I see you now. I don't hear you, but I see you.
Yep, I'm definitely here, I think.
Let's see. Okay, share this. Share now. All right, that should have done it. Well, that worked better. Okay. All right. Let me go make sure it's there.
Try to get everything
set
yeah. Here.
Yeah, we're all there. Okay. Let me get back to my proper page. Okay, good. Let me sit up nice and straight with the good posture and all that, like Mama always said I should do. Oh.
Okay, there we go.
Now, I know you've had a rough day, so I'm hoping that the following hour will be the best part of your day.
It's a very good possibility that it could be. At the rate today's gone, there's no doubt about that.
That may not be saying a lot, but we'll try to make it pleasant. All right. So if you could take a deep breath and you're kind of ready, I'll start the show with an intro and you know what we're talking about. And we won't have the benefit of pictures, but that's okay. You will paint word pictures for us.
We'll do it. We'll do our best.
You'll do great. I always look forward to having you on, Dave. I'm serious about that. All right. Besides that, you charge less than our other guests. What? All right, here we go. It is This Week in Radio Tech. Hey, everybody on the network. Glad you're here. We're a couple minutes late getting started, but that's okay. We'll have a good time anyway. And Suncast is at the controls. I need a picture sometime of Suncast at the controls. Suncast, sometime get somebody to take a picture of you, maybe over the shoulder, and you're at the controls, and we'll post that on the TWiRT page, or maybe you're pulling your hair out. I don't know, but whatever you do during the show, as long as it's safe and legal, then maybe we'll put a picture of that up. All right, enough of that. We'll hide the booze outside of camera range. What? And we'll start the show in 3, 2. Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to that light bulb from the top of the tower. I am Kirk Harnack, your host, and I'm delighted to be here. Glad you're here, too. We're going to have a very informative show. In the past, sometimes we talk about fun things, and, we're going to have fun, but we're also going to learn some stuff because our guest today is somebody who really we can all learn a lot from. The guy is brilliant, and he's humble too. So we'll hear from him in just a second. Like I said, I'm Kirk. I work for the Telos Alliance, and on Thursdays, I take a couple hours off from Telos to do this podcast for the broadcast industry, for radio and a few TV engineers as well, and some radio hangers-on. We try to, educate and have fun at the same time. I'm in the Nashville studio. I'm in the Telos Alliance studio here in Nashville, Tennessee. It is a hot day in most of the South. including where our guest is. He's come in the door, and I believe he's still sweating. So let's go ahead and say hi to our guest, Dave Anderson, from somewhere in Florida. Dave, where are you coming to us from? What city?
Coming from Newport Richey, just about about an hour northwest of Tampa.
Oh, okay. I've heard of Newport Richey before. I can't say I've spent any time there, but I know you do spend time there. That's domicile for you. All right.
Yeah. If you think about where Tampa and St. Pete and Clearwater is, it's kind of to the north of both Clearwater, St. Pete, and Tampa by about an hour in every direction. To be honest with you.
Okay. And the shore
used to be a lot of farmland, but not anymore.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, good deal. I got to ask you about your studio. What is behind you? DVDs, CDs, books? Mm-hmm. What is all that? Yeah, all that.
Yeah, this is the home setup, and that's for some of us stubborn old guys. That's physical media. Yes, young folks. There actually is this thing called physical media: CDs, DVDs, and Blu-rays. There was a life before streaming.
Have you dubbed all that to digital?
Oh yeah. Most of it is. It's still there because I just can't get rid of it. I just can't part with it.
I hear you. All right. Well, hey, Dave is here. Chris Tarr is trying to get here, but he said there's a good chance he wouldn't be here. He was still on the road as of about 20 minutes ago and said he couldn't. I wanted Chris to be here because Chris and Dave really talk at a very similar level. They have, different responsibilities, but a lot of the same things within those responsibilities. But that's okay. Kirk and Dave are going to talk, and Dave's going to describe a couple of interesting topics. And I'm just going to preview them right now. Two main things we're going to hit. Dave, you posted on Facebook, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, you posted about moving some studios, I guess, within the same building. And your comment was that it turned out to be much easier than doing this was 15 or 20 or 25 years ago because of fiber and audio over IP. Now, without giving away the story, is that kind of the lines we're going to talk about with the studio move?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to talk about the simplicity that audio over IP workflows give you when it comes to managing your plant, as well as talking about when it comes to fiber, what can also hurt you on your way out to the tower.
Well, that's the other topic. Yeah, it's fiber seems to be wonderful when it's inside the building, but when the fiber is traveling many, many miles, even underground, Dave says there can be problems, and many companies are depending on fiber to transport their customers' media, whether it's phone calls or video or radio stations or whatever it may be, but it turns out that a lot of different companies are depending upon the same fiber. And so the lack of diversity can be a problem. We're going to talk about that coming up. But first, let me tell you about our first sponsor, because they are amazing. It's the folks at AIIR, AIIR.com. And Ricky Lee there, he and his team of developers have been working actually for quite a while on a scheduling platform, a music scheduling platform that Air is making available. It's available right now. In fact, I need to bring my notes up about it. It seems like I failed to do that. Their scheduling program is called Scheduler. How about that? You go to air.com/scheduler, and it really makes scheduling easy. Of course it does. They're going to say that, but also it makes it easy because it is online. It lets you schedule music in an online environment. That means you can do it from anywhere you have an internet connection, and that's practically anywhere these days. It was created by radio experts for literally everyone. I mean, you can get it set up, and if you need to take a vacation, well, you can schedule on vacation, or you can have somebody do it for you. You really do free up your time. They know how important your time is. Scheduler is built with speed and usability in mind. I mean, those were goals right there. Schedule from anywhere. It's cloud-based, and that enables you to schedule literally from anywhere. And using the powerful tools that Air includes, you can tweak, you can edit, you can export with confidence, or you can just let it happen automatically according to your rules. You can add multiple stations to the same library or switch between different libraries for each one. That's up to you. You can sort your audio into appropriate categories for automatic scheduling. That's what we all want. We want automatic scheduling. to sound as good as we would do it ourselves. And audio can be added to multiple categories with options on how they're ordered or how they're shuffled. Some things can happen, pretty randomly. Other things, hey, I want this song to happen, every 2 hours without fail, or every 4.5 hours without fail, and never be in conflict with the same artist or a similar artist, or even, tempo. You can do tempo matching. All the things that you can do with other music scheduling programs, you can do with Air. You can separate by artist, by featured artist. You can have a minimum separation. You can have title separation, hour rotation, tempo separation, and flow. Just on and on and on, the features that are built in. And right now they're doing a deal where it's free until the end of September. So you've got, well, gee, that's right, at 2 months. You've got 60 days to try out Scheduler from Air, starting right now. Just go to air.com/scheduler, or just go to air.com. The schedule button's right there, Scheduler, and read all about it. You can sign up for it, and there's really nothing to even download. It's done in your browser. And it's compatible with quite a few different automation systems. You can import your existing music library, or if you need to start from scratch, you can start from scratch. Thanks a lot to Ricky Lee and his team at air.com. It's spelled funny, AIIR.com, for their music scheduler program. And by the way, when September's over, what does it cost? It's $60 a month per station. $60 a month. That's really awesome. All right. We're at This Week in Radio Tech. Me, Kirk Harnack, is here along with Dave Anderson. So Dave, shall we talk about the fun stuff first, the studios? That was our first topic, and we'll save the gnarly details, the frustrating stuff for later.
Yeah,
I got to visit you at WUSF. Maybe it's been a couple of years ago or so now, but you've got some beautiful studios with some of the latest Axia gear and some Telos gear, and you've also got some that's not exactly new. And we did a show where we talked about your studios. I also did some videos for Telos where I showed your studios. Kind of tell me, how things were a few weeks ago, and then what the goal was in moving some studios.
well, we started working on a new project where we're going to be starting a new show that's going to be produced in-house, and we really didn't have the space in the building for it. The way we used to have it set up, our control room was in the corner of the newsroom with a little booth for the host to sit into, because we have board operators. Believe it or not, that's still a thing in some public radio world. We needed to move everybody out of that room and get them to where they could have a nice office and a production suite to work in. And it's been my goal since I started there to actually move the master control room into the studio that's in the main hallway. When you're first walking into the building, it's right there. So I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and this just kind of gave me the crowbar I needed to move those rusty nails a little bit. The irony is, one of the operations managers that was at the station, 15, 20 years ago, that's up in Chicago now, sent me a Facebook message the other day saying, "How did you get them to decide to move to where they would have to walk down the hall?" And I'm like, well, didn't really give them a choice in the matter. I grabbed the console, I unplugged it, and I started moving it, and that didn't leave them a whole lot of options. But,
that's a technique that engineers should try now and then when they think they're going to when they know that what they want to do is good, it's right, it's the thing to do. We have another friend who's the director of engineering for a good sized broadcaster, and he needed to implement some touchscreen studios because that was going to give them the technology they needed to do some other stuff. And he didn't give the jocks, he didn't say, well, did you like a touchscreen or do you want the faders? And he just said, here's your new console, it's touchscreen, it's really cool, have fun. And you know what? They have fun. He didn't have to persuade anybody because there's your new console. I'm sorry, go ahead. But sometimes engineers just gotta. And
that's what in my career, that's what I've discovered is sometimes is the easiest way to get adoption acceptance. We jokingly say that when we're at home, we're striving for the what everybody likes to refer to as the WAF, wife acceptance factor. Except at the studio, it's the talent acceptance factor. But there was some resistance to it at first, of course. Once they started realizing what it was going to let them do, then all of a sudden it was, wow, we should have done this decades ago. So
Oh.
the beauty of it is I moved 3 studios worth of gear around. I moved in the world of Axia. I moved a Radius from one room into a edit booth. I moved a Quasar SR from one studio into a bigger production room, and I moved our main Quasar XR that used to be in that room that's now going to be the spot for the Daily Show into the hallway. Now, you think years ago, I mean, I'm even thinking just the consoles that we had in the building before we went to Axia, the Logitech TDM system, the,
Mhm.
you know, ball of wire that big that went into every studio with 15 punch blocks. It would have taken forever to have moved this stuff. And we decided when we built the plant out that I had experience with another plant here in town. And, here in Tampa, we are the lightning king of Florida. I mean, it doesn't get
Mm.
much worse than it gets here.
Yeah.
Um, and we knew that we had a lot of problems. And one of the easiest ways to, galvanically isolate yourself is to, well, run it on fiber. Uh, Lightning hasn't figured out how to go down glass yet. And whoever does figure that out is probably going to be worth a lot of money, but can't change the laws of physics on this yet. So, we've got Cisco 9300 switches back in the technical core, the TOC, and we run single mode fiber from that switch to sub switches in each of the studios that feed the nodes or blades, depending on which brand you're using, or the console go into your computers for your virtual sound cards. And it basically just lets you pick stuff up and move it. Most studios nowadays, like a production room, in the case of most of mine, are a single node. It's a single mixed node. It's the mic, you microphone, headphones, speakers,
Mm. Hmm.
all go on that one node. You've got maybe one or two computers attached to it, and then all the sources in the building are available on that console, which in our case is some 200 of them. So you've got all the different satellite channels. We have 6 Comrexes, VX phone hybrid. There's just all sorts of stuff that's on the network, and it's just there the second you plug it in. This is all wiring that would have just taken forever to do. And when I moved everything in a matter of 2 days and labeled everything and labeled all the wires and cleaned up, I thought to myself, this is really I mean, I almost had to pinch myself. It's like I've been working with IP a long time, Kirk. I mean, my first console was an Element. You know,
Oh yeah.
this
Yeah.
going way back. This isn't new tech for me, and it still just caught me off guard just how simple it was to move things. Um, I mean, if I remember last place I used to work, we had a flood in the building, and it flooded. It was one of those 9 or 10 inch rain events that just overran the gutters. Water ran over the roof, came back in on the inside of the studio.
Oh.
And we had to
Wow.
vacate the studio right away. And we moved it into a conference room in a matter of 2 hours. I'm
Ooh.
talking
Wow.
multiple production computers, automation,
Hmm.
um, headphones, microphones. Granted, it was folding tables and the mic arms were screwed with drywall screws into the steel beams of the table, but we had them between the morning show and the drive home show up and running in that conference room because we knew they were going to be in there for a period of time because it was for the abatement of all the work that needed to be done to get the drywall taken out and everything that had gotten soaked. So I already knew it could be quick, but this time it just seemed so strange because as we were flow charting the process of how we were going to move these studios around, it just looked like it was an insurmountable project. It was, okay, we got to, it was musical chairs basically. This studio goes into this room, this gear goes into this room, and it's all because of the capabilities of the hardware. Every version of this hardware has different capabilities. Obviously, we wanted the XR in the master control room. It's got the motorized faders. It's got all the remote control feature built enabled inside of the engine to where we can control it through the web. Where the production room SR doesn't have that because, well, how many times have you needed to remotely control a production room console?
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
it's just not something you need. So we had to move some stuff around. But um, when you've got basically a fiber, and all of our studios are connected to the rest of the building with 2 pieces of fiber. One is the broadcast network, which is where, in the case of us, it's RCS Zeta for automation, and that's where a lot of the other things on the broadcast network exist. And then we've got the second network, which is the Livewire network. They both actually interconnect to each other through a Palo Alto firewall for maintenance purposes, for getting to the web interfaces and whatnot between the two networks. But they're isolated only because of the fact that the amount of channels that we have on our network and the amount of them that are live stereo channels, the packet per second rate that switch sees is an absolute ungodly amount of packets per second. I mean, we're pushing. I forget the last time I looked at it. It's the number's like this long when you look in the Cisco. It's insane. But the beauty of it is you've got your little stub switch that you plug in the studio that's got 8 ports. That provides PoE. So, okay, you got your VX phone, you pop it down on the console, you plug it in, it's powered up, it's got connectivity. You drop your console down, you plug it in, power it up, boom, it talks to the engine. Now you're back up and running because the engine is just a one-use Linux-based server that's back in your technical core. You grab a couple of nodes that can be also power over Ethernet off of that same switch with redundant power if you plug it into the wall at the same time. You got your mics, your headphones, your speakers, GPIO for on-air lights, whatever you may need. And you're pretty much done, because you figure all the computers nowadays are going to have virtual sound cards. So that's just yet a second Ethernet port on the back of your automation computer, your production machine. In case we use NewsBoss for our news gathering software, ENG software. So there's so much of the studio is just Cat5, Cat6 cables going into a switch. And with everything, the nice thing about how pretty much all of these audio over IP systems have is, in some form or another, they will all talk to each other. It may not at the flick of a switch work, but I've got gear by 5 different vendors on my network. Some is Dante, some is AES 67, some is, it doesn't matter. You can figure out how to do this. It's not complicated, and it's getting to the point where it's a lot easier. There's a lot of documentation out there on how to do it, and that helps a lot.
Let me, before we take our next break, let me ask you just a couple of questions so I can get a few facts in my head. It sounds like you build studios very similarly to the way that I've been able to build them. And you mentioned you put a small live wire or AOIP capable switch in a studio. That way you run one cable or one fiber, whatever it may be, into that studio, and from there you break it out with a small switch to the few devices that are in there, the audio console, the Surface. If you've got a computer, maybe you've got a production computer in there, maybe you do, maybe you don't. You've got a node, you said, for mic in or audio in, some audio out, headphones, speakers. So by doing it this way, you really only have to run one connection, whether it's copper or fiber, from the core switch out to that studio switch. Have I got that picture right?
You sure do. And the beauty of that is that, especially when you're running fiber through a building that gets hit by lightning pretty regularly, even though we have a lightning protection system on the roof, it still does, is that those studios all stand alone. They're not electrically connected to each other. I mean, they are, because they're all on the same UPS, but you don't have multiple paths to ground. In the old days, when you were doing a studio, all of your different analog AES paths had their own paths to ground. You had electrical paths to ground. You had telephone path to ground if a surge suppressor kicked in. Nowadays, you just have the one path, and the equipment just sits there and goes, "That was lightning." Doesn't care. But between the flexibility of being able to have every channel in the building on that one cable, and being able to have it, and the switches are really inexpensive anymore. You can get the Ciscos. I usually buy brand new for the main switch, and then I will go on the secondary marketplace and find the exact same switch for a fraction of the price and buy it as a spare. I mean, I've got half a rack of equipment in the back room for spares.
I've often thought you should treat the cost of a Cisco switch like a used car. If you want a brand new one, you're going to pay for it, and for your core switch that's handling everything, probably a good idea to have a brand new one. Maybe a secondary market one as a backup that you could move everything to. But then for the studio, the individual studios, I've done the same thing. I bought a used Cisco switch one time. It was the 2960 series for a studio. I bought it off eBay, and it had a an ownership tag. It had an inventory tag from the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections. So I thought, okay, fine. It programmed just fine. There's no problem. So Dave, that was the one question. So you mentioned you have two networks. You have the audio over IP, typically Livewire network, and then you've got a separate cable for what you call the broadcast network. For me, I tend to call it the business network. Maybe you even have a third network somewhere for the business network.
We do.
I don't. I should separate those, and I don't. I think it'd be better if I did, because the secretary has access to the automation system, and so do the salespeople. I'm not sure that that's a good idea. But for the business network, do you have another small switch in the studio to handle, like a VoIP phone or things like that?
Most of that stuff, all the phones and stuff, are on the broadcast network. The only thing that's what I call the broadcast network is basically anything
That's what
in
I
the
meant
studio.
To say. Yeah.
It's going to be your EAS boxes. It's going to be your Nielsen PPM encoders, web interfaces. It's going to be your remote control for SNMP, things like that. And then we have not really what you call a public network, but it's the university's network. And that's where all of our desktop computers reside. And obviously, I don't want every student to have the ability to, do an Nmap on our IP addresses and find things. So
exactly,
we have a Palo Alto firewall that sits between those two networks and the other network, and then we allow based on IP address and MAC address combinations. And because there's only 3 of us that ever need to get in, and there's a couple of people that have the ability to push automation logs and pull reconciliation reports and stuff like that. But it keeps it very tight and tied down, which is a really good thing to do. I see too many guys who do this stuff, and they'll plug stuff in on the public network, or they'll try running file server traffic on the same network that the audio over IP network is on, and I just don't recommend that.
The AOIP network should be, as much as possible, keep only AOIP stuff. You mentioned you don't put your EAS box or your PPM box on the AOIP network because they don't need to be on. They're not doing AOIP in and out. They're doing management, but no, not AOIP. I got one more quick question before we take a break. You've mentioned a couple times this Palo Alto router between the two networks. I understand why you're doing that. I don't feel like I have the chops, the technical chops to make that work. So I tend to pick usually one computer that I have remote access to, and it has 2 NICs on it, one for the business network and one for the AOIP network. Is that a reasonably valid way to do it as well?
It's a reasonably valid way to do it as long as you're not running software on that PC like TeamViewer or something that could be compromised. Because at that point in time, it may not be that the software is compromised. It could be password reuse. Somebody reuses the same password to get in TeamViewer. And then once they're in that computer, they might as well be on your network at that point.
Sure.
I go with the firewall approach, and there's a ton of options out there. We go Palo Alto University is Palo Alto. The whole campus is Palo Alto. We've got 400 gig. We have 400 gig of internet that comes in the building off of 4 different internet providers, and it just Palo's the standard. And when I wanted to build the network out at the campus, I approached them and I says, "Look, this is what I want to do." And the guy was like, "Okay, well, here's your list of authorized vendors to buy from. If you want us to help you, we will help you, but sounds like you don't want our help." And I was like, not really. I'm good. If you want to check me for security afterwards, that's fine. But no, I really don't think you want to be on call 24 hours a day like I am. And I did.
Gotcha.
But the nice thing about the Palo Alto is it's not just a packet firewall. It's actually what they call an application firewall, one of what they call the next gen firewalls. They don't look based on port number. They based on application. You build rules in the device that help it identify a particular application's traffic, and it passes it based on that.
Gotcha.
So you're not sitting there making 15. You're not making 15 firewall rules for a single app to run.
Hey, we're talking to Dave Anderson. Dave is the chief engineer taking care of WUSF. Have I got that right, Dave? I'm doing that from memory.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. In Tampa, Florida. And Dave has just been through a studio move where he says it was much easier because you're not running cables and punch blocks and all that kind of stuff. You're literally you move all the gear and then just reconnect the same 2 fibers that go to the core switches for it. And hey, all your functionality comes back. Our show is brought to you in part by Broadcast Bionics. And Broadcast Bionics has something rather technical, but it's so easy to use because they made it easy to use. That's the whole idea. It's called Virtual Rack. Virtual Rack lets you deploy containerized broadcast products without being a Linux expert. Containerized products come with a lot of benefits like flexibility, resilience, density, scalability, but you also just about need an IT specialist and IT skills and knowledge to deploy them on Linux servers. Well, Virtual Rack allows you to take advantage of these benefits while you don't have to have the skills for the deployment process. Now, I got to tell you, I work for the folks at Telos Alliance. You can certainly pay our deployment team at Telos Alliance to install these things for you. That's a very common practice. They'll remotely install these products and make sure all the networking is correct, which is a little bit complex. But Bionics has this other idea with Virtual Rack. They use purpose-built management software and appliances optimized to run these broadcast applications. So Virtual Rack enables you to install these containerized products literally with a few clicks of your mouse. If you've ever seen this demo at NAB, it's just amazing. What do you get with Virtual Rack? You get a purpose-built appliance. So it's a server with this management software on it. You get the Virtual Rack management software, and you get an application library. So you go in the web interface, and there's all kinds of applications from literally different companies. A lot of them are from Telos Alliance because Telos Alliance makes a lot of virtualized products. But also there are things on there from Ferncast, from Sound 4, and from 2WCOM. And you can choose the applications you want. You click a button to install the application that you want. And most of the applications will at least work in a demo mode, even if they're not licensed. I know some of the Telos products will certainly do that. Then you contact, each individual manufacturer or your favorite dealer to buy the licensing for that particular product. And then you run it. And then you've got an audio console, or you've got codecs, or you've got audio processing from these different respective manufacturers. And it's cool as can be. There are videos on the Bionics website, and also Dan McQuillan has been on our show before, about a year ago or so, and really describing how these things work. And I got to tell you, my colleagues at Telos Alliance have really examined what Broadcast Bionics is doing here, making these deployments easy. And our developers love it. They think it's just as cool as can be. It's not for everybody, but it may be exactly what you need to do to deploy virtual functionality in your broadcast world. You can also have failover. You got to buy 2 of them, but you can have complete failover, and the applications are just amazing, the broadcast applications. That's what stations are doing nowadays. They have these virtual racks all over the world, and you can put your entire air chain in one place, and you can back it all up, fail-safe it in one place. So check it out. This website is bionics.co.uk. Or you can look in the show notes for this podcast and find the link for Broadcast Bionics and Virtual Rack. Thanks, Dan McQuillan. Thank you, Broadcast Bionics, for this amazing product and for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, we're talking to Dave Anderson, Director of Engineering over at WUSF in Tampa, Florida, lightning capital of the world. We're going to get to the lightning part because Dave has some stories of maybe how telecom industries are kind of messing up right now, and maybe how to make it better. Dave, what more would you like to detail for us about the studio moves and maybe some of the technologies that broadcast engineers ought to be concerning themselves with so that they can implement some of the same things that you've implemented?
I would say the first thing, for anybody that's in the broadcast environment, especially if you've been in it for a while and you don't have a whole lot of IT background beyond maybe working on a PC, uh, take a couple of the CompTIA classes, networking, understand what the different layers of the network are, understand how the audio over IP packets work as multicast packets using IGMP querying and a switch to basically route the packets. Basically, you turn your core Ethernet switch into the kind of like the very large XY router, which is what's nice because any source can go to any destination if you really think about it. Yeah, you got to have the background. I run into a lot of guys that try taking the jump into audio over IP, and they'll call me because I do consulting as well, and they'll be like, "Hey, we're having stuttering," or I can't get the channel to come up on the console all the time, and you'll hop in and Well, what are you running for a switch? Well, it's just this $200 thing I bought off of Amazon. It says
Mm,
it's a
yeah.
smart switch, and no, it's not.
It's not
not
smart
and
enough.
not at yeah, not at the traffic rates we're talking about when you start running an entire plant worth of audio in a system like this. You might be able to get away running a
Yeah.
switch like that in a little production room with a couple, two or three devices, but you get a bunch beyond that. And it's a limitation of all of the technology. I don't care if you're running Dante in a live environment, running Midas or Digico or Avid, or if you're running Wheatstone or Axia. It really does not matter. It's the payload of the audio is the same no matter what vendor it is. It's mainly the headers that are the big difference. But um,
Hmm.
just as you're looking to buy new hardware for your plant, look for things that have that network jack for audio or IP built into it. Um, our off-air monitors, we use a box called a Sophia
Hmm.
um, by Innovonics that's got a Dante port on the back of it.
Hmm.
So plug that into the network. I use V modes in Axia to convert a raw multicast channel into an actual real live wire channel. That
Oh
way I
yeah,
can
yeah.
distribute it a whole heck of a lot easier. It's a whole lot easier to add that live wire channel to 10 consoles than it is to add the multicast. So I'll do a V mode to convert it. Same with the multi rack by Comrex. It's got the 5-in-1, comes out, spits it out as one jack. The thing that really was nice for public radio when we went to the XDS satellite receivers a couple of years back, the back of my satellite receivers have two Ethernet cables, one for management, one to go out for terrestrial internet, and the other one is the live wire that gives me all of my closures and 4 channels of audio on. So just try to find hardware that's designed for this. Um, it's a whole lot less expensive. I mean, there is a curve you got to go over to get past it, but once you get over the main hurdle of getting that bigger Ethernet switch up and running and stuff like that, things start getting a lot cheaper. Instead of buying, multi-thousand-dollar sound cards for a computer, you're buying a two, four, $800 virtual driver that just installs
Yeah.
on the computer and runs. So, there's a lot of savings that do kick up in the long run. And
J-
I
Hey,
just
I
I
want to
I just love the technology.
I want to address, give an explanation to something that you said. Couple things to bear in mind about audio over IP and why the switches need to be not only smart enough to properly handle audio over IP, but also have large enough tables in them to handle the number of channels that you want to do. And so the quick explanation would be, in most audio over IP schemes, they're multicast, and that means that something that's generating a stream, like the output of a computer that's got an IP driver in it, or a node that has a microphone going into it, or maybe the output of some analog receiver or something that's going into it, gets turned into live wire, and that gets turned into a multicast live wire channel. That channel has an exclusive IP address in the multicast range. There's a range of IP addresses that's just set aside for multicast media, and this stream that's generated goes to the core switch, and it stops there. It just dead stops. Nothing happens to the packets until another device or the same device requests a copy of that stream. And that's how the bandwidth of the system is not overwhelmed. You don't have all streams everywhere all the time. It's a subscription model. You publish a stream, it goes to the core switch. The core switch says, aha, I know where you are. I know what you named this stream. I know what its address is, and it gets advertised to the other devices. And then some devices, oh, I'd like a copy of that off-air feed or that NPR channel from the satellite receiver. And the Ethernet switch says, okay, here's your copy of it. So that's how multicast doesn't use crazy bandwidth. Then the other thing that has to happen, and this is where a few stations have gotten in trouble over the years, is if you have some of the smaller capability media switches, whether they're from Cisco or anybody else, there's a limit to the size of the table, the IGMP, Internet Group Management Protocol,
Yep.
that table that it keeps. It keeps a track of the things I just mentioned. And if you exceed that table, well, that doesn't work. And so some switches come with a modest table of maybe 256 entries, some with 512, some with 1,000, some with 10,000, but you pay more for the switches that have, 10,000 entries. And over the last 20 years, believe me, the prices have come way down from where they started
Big
at
time.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
We had a station in Houston, and wonderful engineer, and he was nearly maxed out on his core switch when he first put in, I don't know, 9 or 10 studios. And then he added one more studio, and he exceeded the table size, and that didn't work anymore. Well, unplug the studio, to get back on the air. So that's, I'm just giving some meat on the bones as to what you described.
Sure.
And that's why the selection of Ethernet switches for a system of any size other than one or two devices is pretty important.
It's very important. It has to be a switch that can support IGMP. It's also got to be able to support some basic quality of service rules. If it can't do that, you're going to run into problems. And again, this doesn't matter what protocol at this point. It could be Livewire, Dante. It doesn't matter. Pretty much everybody runs in the same thing. And those multicast addresses, like you're saying, they all start with 239 dot something. And there's actually a formula that you can use to convert that multicast IP address into a Livewire channel number. The devices do it automatically, but you can do it with an Excel spreadsheet pretty simply.
That's pretty cool. I give something a Livewire channel number of, let's say, 8902, and all Livewire devices do the math inside. So, well, that's IP address, blah 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 blah, and that's it. And by the way, the formula that's available in a spreadsheet from Livewire support, from Axia support. They'll you can see that conversion happen. Let's see. What else did I want to ask you about this before we have to take another break? Well, this architecture lets you put edge switches, and that's what you were talking about earlier. In the studio, I would call that an edge switch. And interestingly, it doesn't have to be one switch per studio. I know the folks at Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty in Prague, their model, they had a big core switch. I mean, a big core switch, like $250,000 core switch, and they had two of them. So, but each two studios got an edge switch. So they used one 16 or 24 port edge switch for each two studios, and that worked out fine for them. They also, I think, had redundant home run. Oh no, they had home runs to the two different big core switches. So there's if you know what you're doing, there's a lot of possibilities for redundancy and reliability.
Exactly. And the nice thing about IGMP being the way it is, if you go in and weight ports correctly, you could run multiple paths between these switches and the core switch and have that redundancy. You could even run a second stub switch in the case of a lot of the Livewire devices like the X nodes. They already have two Ethernet ports on the back of them. That you one into one switch the other and make your way all the way to the back. The node is smart enough to where if the one port goes down, it flaps over to the second automatically.
Yeah.
The technology on this, I'd like to say that it's leaps and bounds beyond, it's grown leaps and bounds, but when this all started with Steve Church, I mean, the way Livewire started then is pretty much how we're working with it to this day, and it just works. It makes it to be a super clean, easy way to run a plant, and I have enjoyed running it for more years than I want to admit.
The key to you being able to move a studio easily and quickly, and the key to all this working is, think about it, over the last 20, maybe 25 years, most everything in the broadcast plant can be on Ethernet now. Okay, I realize only one or two companies may be making a microphone that actually plugs into Ethernet, but the mic goes into a preamp on an X node or other people's other brands equivalent thereof, and turns it right into their AOIP. So everything comes on AOIP, and then your phones are VoIP, your video cameras in the studio are VoIP, your on-air lights, GPIOs, those travel over IP. So with everything being in this ubiquitous transportation model, then we get to use the actually fairly inexpensive transport devices, those being Cisco switches and cables and fibers, to make all this stuff work. And that's such a boon to our industry instead of all these different. I mean, think back to 1985 and all the crazy things you had to do to make all the different things work.
Yeah, the crazy things you had to do, the incompatibility from one vendor to another. Oh, we bought this brand. Oh, wait, now we can't do this. Well, it just doesn't exist in this ecosystem. And like you say, with the ubiquitousness of, you think every company, every industry in the world, every data center is using these switches that are more than capable of doing it. So the volume, just by demand, the fact that they're making millions of these switches, more, um, the price per device has come down so much that, even if you need a big, powerful switch, say a 48 port Cisco 9300 that's got PoE and say 8, 10 gig ports. I mean, you're only going to spend five or $6,000. Which, when you think about it, I mean, what did a SAS router cost you back in the 90s?
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, tons,
so
tons. Yeah,
it's just it's changed the world. I've still got a couple of small stations I do consulting for that are still running on AES plans, and we're going to be moving them over to IP, because again, where their programming is coming from now has a live wire spigot on the back of their receiver. Um, you know, it's just, why not? At this point.
yeah.
Plus, when it's on the network, the big thing for me is it's work life balance. Um, if everything's on the network and I have VPN capabilities to get into that device securely and safely, unless I physically have to touch the device, there's not much I can't do from home,
Right,
or for that
right.
matter, on my phone in the parking lot, or I mean, wherever. I mean, um, I've resolved Comrex connection issues in the parking lot at Disney World.
Yeah,
It's
yes,
just
yeah,
crazy the things you can do. This is stuff you couldn't do, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, everything required a trip to the studio, so it's a lot
ah,
nicer. Um, with the boards all having web interfaces now, if you've got breaking news happening and you're a news station and you don't have somebody in the building running the board 24/7. Oh, wait, there's breaking news. Well, hey, we got a guy at home that he drew the short straw this weekend. All he has to
yeah,
do is log in and, you know,
yeah.
using WebRTC to get the audio up to the studio. He can introduce it, push the fader up, and voila, the next thing you know, you'd think that he was in the building, and now he's 40 miles at home, sitting in an apartment somewhere. Which
Dave,
I guess
Dave
I guess
describes it.
morphs to the next one.
Yeah. Dave Anderson's our guest. He's the director, chief engineer over WUSF in Tampa, and does a great job. I love talking to Dave. I always learn something. And Dave has taught me a lot over the years. So thank you, Dave. Our show, This Week in Radio Tech, brought to you in part by our friends over at Angry Audio. This is a company owned by Mike Dosh. Mike Dosh does help design the line of Axia consoles back in the early days. Worked with Steve Church on that and the developers. Well, now now Mike has his own company. It's called Angry Audio, and he makes the stuff that he loves to make. Did you know that Mike Dosh started out designing guitar pedals and all those wah wah, those kind of things? Guy's just a genius in designing things that help you out, help you get your job done. Well, one of those things that he's designed, and I know we've been talking about AOIP consoles, but sometimes you just need a small analog console, and that's the Rave console. And I'm not, hey, Suncast, I'm not going to do the whole ad about Rave because we're going to talk about the studio adapters too. But the Rave console is an analog console, great for a small studio, podcast studios, production studios, things like that. It is an amazing little console that is built like a tank. You hold this thing. It's heavy. It has all the broadcast stuff you need, like a tally light. It's got 4 mic preamps in it. The first 4 faders are either mic or line. It uses the Studio Hub connectors to get audio in and out, except for the mics. You can bring the mics in on XLR connectors, as people are so often want to do. There's a picture of the Rave console online right there. And I mentioned the Studio Hub connectors because that's the other thing I really wanted to talk about in this ad. I'm sorry, Suncast, to surprise you with the Rave console. The Studio Hub connectors are such an industry standard, developed by Dan Braverman years ago when he saw how fast an IT guy was building a network in a radio station. And there's Dan Braverman, crimping wires and putting things together and taking days to do it. Well, the Studio Hub adapters and cables are just invaluable. If you go with all AOIP systems, those AOIP systems typically will use a Studio Hub RJ45 style connector to get audio in and out. Balanced line audio or balanced AES EBU audio. You can even use Cat5 cables to run multiple GPIOs, and the folks at Angry Audio make the adapters for that. Hey, if you've got a satellite receiver, no matter which company makes the satellite receiver, probably Angry Audio has an adapter for its GPIOs as well as for its audio connections. Man, I just put in 8 satellite receivers on the island of Maui, and we used all Studio Hub gear and some gear designed by Mike Dosh to easily bring the audio and the GPIOs from the satellite receivers into our Axia system. So all kinds of styles, male, female, XLRs, mono, stereo. The mono ones are typically used for AES EBU. Whether you want a female RJ45 or whether you just want a long cable that ends in a male, the RJ45 connector, you can get all that. They have a whole Studio Hub section. If you go to angryaudio.com, click on products and click on Studio Hub, you'll find the page that you're looking at right now on their website. Great stuff, available from most dealers for broadcast gear. I love it. And I would not build a studio these days without having plenty of Studio Hub adapters on hand because they'll make it go so fast. I hate to get the soldering iron out. I used to love the soldering iron, but now it just takes so much time. Our show is also brought to you by our friends at Max Connect. Max Connect does a number of things, and one of them that they actually do in collaboration with Mike Dosh at Angry Audio, and that is this U.192 USB sound card. But of course, it's no ordinary sound card. So many stations are trying out this software that runs in Windows that does FM audio processing and RDS and processing for your stream and streaming all at the same time in the same Windows software. It's pretty amazing what this stuff can do. Like there's Omnia SST, there is Stereo Tool, there's Breakaway One. The problem with doing this, though, is if you want composite audio coming out of your computer or server or whatever, if you want composite audio to feed your exciter directly, your FM exciter, or to feed your 950 megahertz STL with a composite signal, there's just not a great way to do that. Yeah, there's some slapped together ways that kind of get the job done. Well, Max Connect designed this box, the U.192, to do precisely exactly what you need to do. It's got exactly the right circuitry, exactly the right design to give you a beautiful composite multiplex signal. Hey, years ago, I read some articles about how really kind of fragile this signal is, the multiplex signal. You want to treat this with kid gloves over circuits that are very linear and work well. You don't want distortions. You don't want clipping. You don't want capacitors in the circuit. You want, DC to daylight practically, or at least to, 192 kilohertz. And that's what you get with the Max Connect U.192 MPX USB sound card. Love it. It plugs into USB of your computer and gives you multiplex out. It also at the same time gives you stereo audio in and stereo audio out. So you can use it fully with even a cheap computer running one of these FM processor softwares. It's available from Max Connect and any of the typical dealers. Oh yeah, there's the back of it right there. This thing is really cool. Love it. Thank you for making this, Josh Bone and Mike Dosh. Collaborative effort there, but it's available from Max Connect. Our show is continuing right now. Dave, I'm sorry, we've only got a few more minutes left, 2 little short segments, and let's talk about your thoughts on these telecom and other providers all putting lots of eggs into one basket. And that doesn't always work out, especially in Tampa's lightning environment. What story would you like to tell us about this foolishness?
Well, I could probably start off with something that happened about 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago. They're putting in a huge water main in Brandon, which is to the east of Tampa, big 6-inch line, and they were flow molding it in with the directional boring. They directionally bored right into a 500 count fiber, which in turn turned down something like 3 central offices worth of connections. So all of us out in the antenna farm, because everybody but 2 FM broadcasters are out in the Riverview area in Tampa, we all lost people that were still relying on T1s lost their T1s. You lost POTS. You lost your fiber connections if you had managed Ethernet like we use to get our AP path out to the tower. You lost everything. And here's what got me, and this is what you don't think about. The cellular providers, you think, okay, well, I'm going to buy from Verizon. I'm going to buy from T-Mobile. Well, that's their network. Not really. They're going to buy from the most expensive dark fiber provider that they can get, or the least expensive managed Ethernet provider they can get. So in the case of around here, that's our local exchange carrier. That's Frontier Communications. That's the fiber that got cut. So not only did everybody lose all of their circuits, but all the people that had gone off and bought Max Connect routers and basically anything that you could think of, little PepWave boxes, hotspots that would connect to, LTE or, to be able to get you something out to the tower site. Everything quit working. No, the radio went down. TV stations lost their ASI path over fiber. It was unbelievable. Everybody's backup path pretty much failed. The only ones of us that were able to figure it out around it is those of us who still had our legacy 950 STL is the last chance backup. Yeah, we lost our HD2 channel, but I mean, we didn't go off the air, but I mean, it took them 9 hours to fix this. It was not an easy fix, and they had like 40 guys working on it out there. It's a huge hole they had to dig to pull out all the fiber and get the slack up where they could splice it. So when you're dealing with the carrier you're dealing with, you really don't know who is the middleman. I've got a site up in Brooksville, north of here, that the service, I signed the contract with AT&T. The box comes in that I plug into is an AT&T box that is plugged into a box owned by Spectrum. So Spectrum was basically paid. They probably pay a wholesale rate to get their Ethernet service delivered, and then AT&T delivers their service over that. So AT&T, Spectrum had an outage that, again, Spectrum was providing the fiber to a couple cell towers on the same cell carriers on the same site, and you went down. So you've really got to take a look and try to find out when you're getting either a fiber service or if you're going with cellular backup, you need to find out if you can. A lot of times you can go around and just ask the guys that work for these companies. They'll tell you at the sites, but you've got to find out, whose dark fiber it is. If you're on a tower where there's already multiple other people that are on fiber, you can usually figure it out pretty quickly just by walking around. If you find boxes by Crown Castle on the wall, that's their service. That's probably who's going to provide you your fiber service into the building. So you got to be careful of that because, we think to ourselves, oh, we've got all this resiliency. We've got cellular. We've got all this different stuff. It's different networks. It's owned by different people. And yeah, that can absolutely wreck your day or a weekend, in my case, a couple weeks back. Obviously right now, the big thing everybody's looking at is Starlink, but that cannot always be what it's cracked up to be in a high density area like Tampa.
Yeah.
There's times in Tampa where your availability goes down to 97, 98%. And for browsing the web and doom scrolling on TikTok, that's probably plenty. But when you're looking at carrying, a consistent packet rate for audio out to the tower site, that results in a lot of interruptions in the audio. And another thing I've ran into when you put a Starlink dish out at the tower is the tower itself at the build. Even if you put it at the base, the tower itself creates a massive shadow. When you look at the map on the Starlink app showing you where it can't see the sky, the tower will take a good third of the circle. So you end up not being able to see the whole sky anyway. So, we tried Starlink for audio, and you can get away with it if you're running an IP codec that has a ton of forward error correction.
Right.
You can get away with it. But if you're trying to do what I've seen some guys do, just, pull up their internet stream on their web browser and plug it into the audio processor on the laptop, it's just not going to cut it. It's just going to be dropping out too much. But I would say my biggest piece of advice is if you're relying on a fiber provider and you've got another backup, make sure that backup's not relying on that same piece of glass that's in the ground.
Yeah.
And don't think local either. In the case of AT&T, they're known to haul stuff all around. I've got circuits up in Brooksville, north of here, that are fed out of Gainesville. 100 miles away. Um, so there was they dug a hole building a road this last weekend, um, just outside of Gainesville, and took better part of a quarter of the west side of Florida's AT&T circuits down. It was a really big outage, and of course, it took a lot of cell down. And where it's bad too is if it takes your cell down, the other problem you run into is you're at the site. You'll roll up to the site, you'll drive up to the site, and your phone goes SOS, and you realize you're out of service on your phone. And
Mm.
for a few minutes,
Mm.
you scratch your head going, hey, well, my fiber circuit's down, but why is it not working? And then you
Yeah.
realize in order to
Okay.
call the company and report it, you've got to drive 4 miles away to get service again. So it's an interesting problem that I hadn't thought of for quite a while until it started happening to me, and it's happened now 3 times in like the last 4 years. But it's definitely something I would tell anybody to think of when they're designing their plan.
We've got just a couple minutes before our last break. So I want to ask you if, okay, so let's say you find out that, the two different providers right in your area both end up using the same backbone. Um, I mean, one obvious alternative for backup would be Starlink, because they're not going to be using AT&T's backbone, at least not
Mhm.
in that area. They may be using, I mean, at their uplink sites, they're using somebody's backbone, right?
Mhm. Yes.
That there's an uplink site with 9-foot golf balls out in a fenced yard, about an hour and a half drive from my house. It's a Starlink site,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's on a little state highway, not a big one. It's got to be fiber to there. Pretty decent fiber. My point is, boy, what's a person to do to try to make sure you're getting different backbone? That could be tough in some
If
places.
when you're negotiating your circuits out, talk to your salesperson's engineering guy. I
Hmm.
don't care what company you're buying from. All of these telcos are going to have an engineering guy that's available for the sales guy to reference you to. He's going to be able to tell you, hey, we're not going to deliver this one directly. It costs too much money for us to put in 10 miles of fiber. So and so already has it going down the street. We're just going to use theirs. Majority of the time, they will tell you. The other time is obviously if you've going to a site where it's a multi-use site and there's other vendors, you can usually walk around, look around, and see tags hanging on things and stickers, and usually get a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Um, the other option that you've got that some guys have done around here is they've done 6 gigahertz licensed paths, microwave
Oh,
paths.
of course.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and it's just to get away from that local area. But it's one of those things that you don't really think about losing multiple fiber paths. You think to yourself, okay, well, I got 2 fiber paths. I'm paying good money for both of them. You know, I'm rock solid. And yeah, it can catch you off guard. When we had the hurricanes going through last year, we didn't lose both at the same time, but I lost Frontier for about 2 hours at the beginning of the storm. It came back because there was a power outage at the central office. Then
Hmm.
my backup, which was Crown Castle's internet offering, it went down because they had a tree come down and take down fiber that was running aerially between 2 buildings.
Mm.
So even with 2 fiber paths there, we still, by the luck of the timing, we didn't go down, but it could have happened at the same time. So I
Hmm.
I would say my best advice is, whatever your backup plan is, um, really do a lot of research on it. Um, ask a lot of questions. Try to find somebody in your local SBE chapter that's got a lot of telco experience. There's usually
Mm.
one old
Sure.
guy that can help you Elmer around and who knows usually where the bodies are buried, so to speak. Um,
Well, and
uh,
seems
and
like
that
over the last few
helps.
years, we've been excited about, this is a whole topic unto itself, but obviously a backup isn't a backup if it depends on the same infrastructure as the primary. Then it's
Hmm.
not really a backup. So yeah, if you can do two different.
It's not a backup.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Dave, we got to take one more quick break. We'll look for a tip of the week from you in 2 minutes. So stand by. This week in Radio Tech, Dave Anderson is our guest. Love talking to Dave. And I love these folks at Broadcasters General Store where you can get yourself some Vox Pro. We'll be right back.
Hey, what's happening? St. John here, coming to you from Command Central, and wanted to tell you about the absolute best partner you can have in radio. I'm talking about, boom, Wheatstone's Vox Pro. Now, a lot of folks have used previous versions of Vox Pro, all awesome, but I want to tell you about some of my favorite new features in 7. And for folks who've never used Vox Pro before, I'm about to tell you why it's an absolute game changer and essential for really fast-paced multi-element radio. Lots of different audio software out there. Why Vox Pro? Because it was designed for radio. It's the only software designed to do what we needed to do, which is record, edit, playback in real time. When I say lightning fast, I'm going to show you how fast you can edit stuff up in Vox Pro right now. So literally 3 clicks on the controller, mark left, mark right, everything that gets marked, you hit delete, it goes away. It's literally that fast. So we're going to take this part right here. Boom. From caller 9 to him saying, I'm ready.
Ready for that secret sound.
Boom. All of that stuff, hit delete, it goes away. Here's your edit.
You are tackling secret sound caller 9. I'm ready, St. John.
So one of the best features of version 7, this is awesome. It's effects macros, and you can literally put a chain of effects together so that instead of having to normalize a phone bit and then use noise reduction on it and EQ it and all that, you can literally build a chain. One button, this one's called call right here. I just click that. All of those processes happen instantaneously. Literally saves 80% of your editing and cleanup time. Final thing that I love about Vox Pro, and there's so much more to get into, but one of my favorite things, you can load it on a laptop. I've literally done my show from a hotel room in Armenia to the conference room at, this was fun, jury duty. Great thing, no one could tell the difference. Vox Pro makes it totally easy. Telling you, if you're looking for the best on-air partner, call my friends at Wheatstone, ask them about Vox Pro, and you will be glad you did.
And if you want to buy Vox Pro, call Broadcasters General Store or email them or see their website. They're on the web at bgs.cc. Love these folks at Broadcasters General Store. I've been buying from them for literally, has it been 30 years? It's been at least 30 years getting things from BGS. Thanks so much, BGS, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech, along with Vox Pro. I'm Kirk Harnack here in the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville, Tennessee, and Dave Anderson is with us. Dave, we've only got about 3 minutes left. What advice can you leave us to really chew on as we go our merry way today?
Well, since it's getting ready to be the peak hurricane season and we've had all these floods around the country and just really bad weather, I would say let's go back to a piece of advice I gave a couple of years back. Whatever your disaster contingency plans are, I don't care how smart you think you are. I don't care how well thought out your plans are. When it hits the fan, those plans are out the door. You know, that great contract with a fuel supplier that said that they'll always be able to get fuel to you no matter what. You're going to be driving diesel around in a 90-gallon tank in the back of a pickup truck to keep your transmitter on the air. You really have got to think outside of the box. What could fit? Be as absolutely as creative as you can be in failure. If I had to come up with a way of 10 ways that I could take the station off the air in a storm, what could it be? Think about it. I mean, when we had the storms come through last year, we have 2 transmitters out at our tower site. I wrapped the one in visqueen, in 3 mil plastic.
Oh,
completely,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And, completely. So where if water got on, and I turned the power off, so if it got wet, no big deal, dry it off, turn it back on. The other one, I made a tent over the transmitter to where if the roof formed a leak, the water wouldn't pour directly into the transmitter. And that's of significance because, the last cluster I work at lost the roof of their transmitter site during that same storm. So, like I said, you've got to, you've really got to think about it. If you were putting together, the worst disaster movie that Roland Emmerich could put together that was only about a radio station, what would be in that movie? Evaluate it, think it through, talk to other folks in your market. What are they doing? You may find that some people have already got some great things in place. You never know what's going to hit you. You really don't. And I don't care how, like I say, I don't care how many years you've been doing this business. There's always something you're going to learn. There's not a month that goes by that's something, after almost 40 years of doing this, there's not something that makes me sit back and go, wow, I never thought of that. So that would be my piece of advice.
I hear you say, you're saying, pay attention, plan, love what you do. I'm thoroughly excited about the things that I do. You are too. If you're not loving engineering, maybe you need to work for somebody else or do something different. But I'm so enthused about using problem solving skills, just like you're talking about, to solve problems and have contingencies. Yeah, I hear you. Dave, it's been a pleasure to connect with you. I appreciate you very much for being here, making the extra effort to get home early through the traffic and everything you've been through today. So thanks very kindly for being here. I appreciate it. And don't leave. We're going to snag, Suncast is going to take a marvelous portrait picture of you for our use in our thumbnail. So hang on, don't leave. I want to thank Suncast for being at the controls today. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the good job that you do. And you, listeners, viewers, friends, engineers, countrymen, non-countrymen, thank you for being here today. Really appreciate you. Hey, next week we're doing the show on Wednesday, live from the Texas Association of Broadcasters convention in Round Rock, Texas. So join us for that. It's going to be a free-for-all. We're going to have a good time and talk to some bunch of Texas engineers and broadcasters. So we'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.